Welcome to the AI Chat Podcast. I'm your host, Jaden Schaefer. Today on the podcast, we have the pleasure of being joined by Darren Odom, who is an engineer, serial entrepreneur, and thought leader in the computer vision space. He's the senior director of platform business for Network Optix, where he's responsible for bringing SaaS companies into the world of computer and computer vision with NX platforms. Darren's the founder of a recently acquired AI-focused, award-winning edge computing camera company, and his career includes decades of experience in IoT and edge computing, and really it kind of has a focus on bringing AI-powered vision to market. Super excited to have you. Welcome to the show today, Darren.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jaden. I appreciate it. And whatever your makeup department did, they just did such a nice job for me today. I appreciate it.
Oh, no,
looking
problem.
Good. No, yeah. But I've watched your and listened to your podcast, I mean the sheer volume that you put out is incredible, and I just say, props to you, man.
Well, I was doing it solo for a while. I now have a good team that helps with editing and scheduling and posting, so that has made my life about 100 times better. Yeah, man, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in AI. Sometimes I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna record a couple podcasts today. And then there's just too much that happens and I end up cranking out 7. But I try to, for my own sanity's sake, try not to go too crazy. But yeah, so much happening. Excited to get your perspectives on all this. Kicking this off, Darren, what I would love to ask you about is, have you ever wanted to start your own podcast? I record and publish podcasts on a platform called Spotify for Podcasters, and I absolutely love it. Essentially, you can upload from your phone or computer, and it distributes to every platform that plays podcasts. They support video podcasts, and you can make money on the platform with ads or even podcast subscriptions, something that has made my life so much easier as a podcaster. So if you're interested, I highly recommend you give it a try. You can download the Spotify for Podcast app, or go to spotify.com/podcasters to get started on your podcast today. Really, can you tell us a little bit about your journey? What brought you into this space to begin with? Was this something you always knew you were kind of interested in, this kind of tech side? And tell us how you got here today.
From a young age, I've always been an engineer. I was building stuff in my backyard, with broken toys and whatnot. I was a born engineer. I went to school for engineering and took some computer vision classes there. Really liked what I was seeing there. Didn't quite grasp it because it was a super high level course, but really liked the field of and I knew I wanted to go there. As my first job out of college was IoT, so we were building boards for and I'm a hardware guy. We were building boards for satellite communication and really cut my teeth on what IoT means, especially in low bandwidth situations. Yeah. Then I moved to research and development. Did some medical devices. Really strange going from IoT to medical devices, but I managed to bring computer vision into that as well, where we could take and look, and we were doing things like bowel anastomosis, which is taking two pieces of intestine and sealing them with electricity and developing the algorithm for that, it's a lot of animal testing. I was like, oh God, I hate this. I hate, working on animals, but bringing edge computing and computer vision into that was fun. And then I started a consulting company, and I had this great mentor who I was like, I can't scale past myself in a consulting company, so I've got to start hiring people. And this guy, he's like, well, you got to start sales, and that's really what led me to business development and transforming myself from an engineer to a business developer. And I cold called 600 people a week.
Oh my God.
Just going through harsh rejection and calling.
This was for the consulting thing you were doing?
Yeah. So built the business up. But ultimately I got tired of working on other people's products, and I wanted to build my own product. But in that space, I was doing multi-million-dollar government contracts for computer vision. I think we can talk about it in a bit here, but that really opened up my eyes to edge computing and what computer vision would be for my next company, which is Boulder AI. And we built an edge computing camera and so on and so forth. But it's been a journey.
Okay. That fascinating journey. And I think it's really cool to hear a little bit like of people's background, because it helps me get context of like where you're going and what you built next. But tell everyone a little bit about, so you start this consulting company, you're building this up, you're working on other people's projects, and you said you got tired of it. What really inspired you to take the next step and go out and actually build your own, product, company, and computer vision business?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was working on a fish camera. So this is the fishing game in California, and they were looking for Delta smelt, which is this almost extinct fish. And the way that they were sampling it was with a cod end. So basically, all the fish go into the back of the net, and they die. So you have to bring them up on deck, count them one by one. So the charter was, we have to build a camera that the fish can swim through, and we classify them in real time as they swim through the net. So we're not killing them, right? And
kind of count the endangered species.
It's so stupid and so ironic, but that's the way that they've always done it. So we built this camera. We iterated a few times, and we sampled hundreds of thousands of these fish. And at the time, we were using a support vector machine, which is you're trying to feature engineer. You're trying to figure out what features matter that differentiate the species. And let me tell you, I'm not a biologist, and it was really, really difficult to do that. We ended up being about 25% accurate. Okay. And this is right around the time AlexNet came out. So we applied a neural network to the sample of data that we'd already collected, and it went from 25 to like 94% accurate in 2 weeks.
Holy.
And you said it. That is my mind-blowing, like, oh, this is going to change the world. And so we took that design, patented a GPU inside of a hermetically sealed camera, and took that to market.
That's incredible. So you say that very like casually, like we had an aha moment, so we patented it and we took it to market. But like, tell us a little bit, like, what did that look like? So you're working for the fish and game industry. Were you like, oh my gosh, I need to start a company? Do you start calling friends? Did you go get investors? Did you, like, how did you build it out? Like, tell us a little bit more of the process of what that looked like to actually get that started off the ground.
I actually tried really hard to find a co-founder and go and take, start this company, with someone, because ultimately companies are more successful when they have a couple of co-founders. But I never ended up really finding that person. We went through a couple of different co-founders, a couple of different CEOs. And so the process was really like, talking with my wife, like, hey, I think I have something here. I think that, I'm going to start slowly bootstrapping this from the basement. And, it was apparent that we were on to something because of the market's reaction to it. We ended up growing. The first couple of years we were growing at 11% a month. And at that point, you're kind of building the train while you're driving it, and building the car while you're driving it, kind of thing. And so we were building all the infrastructure, all the software to support it. Customers would get a hold of the device. It's this kind of size of a beer can device, and they're like, now how do we use it? And software is this great enabler. I'm a hardware guy, but I'm a strong believer that software is the key to making hardware really, really useful. And so we built all the infrastructure, meaning how do you get neural networks out to the edge? A lot of that hadn't been thought through yet. And this was like 5 years ago. And then how do you get the data back to a cloud platform? How do you view the video if you need to? How do you collect a bunch of data so that you can, improve your models? So we built all of that from scratch, and including all of the hardware. So we built, hundreds of devices, and then going into the thousands of devices at our Boulder, Colorado facility.
That's
So
fascinating. That's incredible. And so one thing I would be curious to get your perspective on, having worked on all of that and having kind of grown that, is, like, how do you see the role of this kind of computer vision area evolving, especially like in the IoT space going into the future?
yeah, so computer vision in IoT means that so we're talking about edge computing, and cameras are this perfect instrument to have an Uber sensor. You've got this sensor that can really do anything, and you add lots of different other things like microphones or other spectrums of sensory, and all of a sudden, it's not about the human consuming that pixel anymore. It's not about people seeing video. It's about how well you can do the sensory. So IoT in terms of computer vision is about camera sensory. And one really validating thing is that when you walk the shows, GSX, ISC West, the big camera shows, they're all moving towards the edge. They're all moving, and there's lots of different processors that they're putting inside those cameras, but these are IoT devices now, straight camera to cloud, that are Uber sensors. They're sensors that video is becoming the second class citizen, and the data that results from that neural network running inside the camera is the first class citizen.
That's incredible. I think so many things are going to shift as this gets more proliferated into all products we're building and using. So you bootstrap this company, you start growing it. Walk us a little bit through the journey of this company and then kind of what came next.
Yeah, so because of the growth rate, we got a lot of attention from industry, I guess, industry veterans that have gone through this growth cycle, and with those industry veterans, we got interest from a number of different suitors, and we sold the company ultimately during COVID, which we had really have to watch the supply chain when you're working on hardware. I had actually during the M&A announcement to the company, I had COVID, and I just couldn't even think. But took a year off, and my wife was like, "Well, what are we going to do next?" And contacted Nathan Wheeler, CEO of Network Optix. We had been buddies for a while. We met at GSX at NVIDIA, NVIDIA's show. And that was right when GPUs were becoming like this, we should probably buy some NVIDIA stock. Turns out he did and I didn't. And, no. But so Nathan made me director of platform. So basically taking this VMS, this really award-winning VMS video management system, and pivoting it into other software as a service offerings outside of the security industry. That was my role.
Very cool. So today you are now, kind of working in this space. Tell us a little bit about, what it is exactly that NX, platforms does, and kind of what you're working on there.
I wish, so I did know about NX at Boulder AI, and I wish I had done more with it back then, because it's this, it's video infrastructure. So video, just like we're talking on this call, is really difficult, especially at scale. So when you're talking about hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of cameras, those can be on different networks, and it's really difficult to get the pixels back to where they need to be for AI or processing or storage. So we do this enterprise level network traversal to make this platform of video technology, and it is, like I said, traditionally made for the VMS space, and it's actually the world's most popular and most white labeled OEM VMS in the world.
Really?
Yeah, it's just known as different things out there. So
That's so interesting. So what are some of the core challenges that you feel like you face in that?
yeah, there's a lot of different of challenges when it comes to video. There's discovery. We integrate with 30,000 different camera devices. So,
Okay.
Just all of the work to get in making sure that when you see a camera, how do you get the video? Also management at scale. So if you have a facility or you have 1,000 facilities, how do you make sure that, the users, all the right users have the right access across all the different campuses? So these enterprise problems come into scale. And then one of the biggest differentiators is that we're a server client software, so it can run on anything. So it can actually run inside of ARM devices, which means that so you can take it from the camera level and traverse the network all the way to the cloud without having any knowledge of where that device is or what network it's on.
That's fascinating. That's really impressive. To be able to get that kind of tech. What do you think some of the biggest implications for AI are based off of, what you guys are building and what you guys are seeing?
Yeah. So, I think all of the buzz around AI is we're finally past this hype cycle of being at the peak of and we're now into this exciting place where you actually start making money on the backside of the hype cycle. So AI enables in video all of this real-time operational data. I call it operational data because it enables business operations to pivot from something that's traditionally like a security, like something I really don't want to pay for, which is like my security camera system, to something that actually has a net benefit to my business. So it can be things like quick service retail, where we have a drive-through. We want to read all of the license plates, look up those license plates, tie it back to my point of sale system, and look up the order so that when that person pulls up and say, would you like your normal chicken sandwich, that's the operational flow that we see from cameras now. So AI is the thing that enables all of that, and there's all of these challenges around which AI do we run? How do we get it out to the cameras if it's that's where it's running, or if it's running on some local server, how do you deploy it to that? And then how do you get that data back into places where it's needed?
Okay. Super, super interesting. Something I would love to ask you about is, what are some real world applications you've seen that effectively use the NX platform that are, maybe impressive?
Yeah, there's a couple of really huge ones that I don't know if I can say their names out loud, but you would know them by the electric vehicles that are driving all over the place. That company uses our technology in the factory floor to make sure that people and robots aren't in proximity with each other. I think 7,000 different cameras, which is amazing scale. I didn't realize like how many cameras they had. But also similar space company uses our software for all kinds of different things that doesn't you wouldn't quite imagine cameras for, but things like rockets taking off and I honestly don't know exactly what they're measuring there, but more utilitarian kind of applications are retail. There's sweethearting, so you have a camera above the self-checkout system, or you have an actual physical checker. They will sometimes pretend to scan, and that that data is now available from the camera source, and so that you can tie that back to the point of sale system and know, oh, that product wasn't rung up, and now we can see the video that was associated with that action, and in real time be able to take action on that. So that's one of the there's a huge, I think it's a multi billion-dollar problem now with retail and honestly leakage happening at the retail level. So we're seeing a ton of applications there. There's applications in my vertical. I was just promoted to VP of transportation, VP of mobility platform. So we're taking it out into things like smart city, parking. We have some OEMs and things like intersection safety. So there's just the applications are all over the board.
Oh my gosh. As you're starting to say some of these use cases, it's blowing my mind. I think this is absolutely fascinating for the listener too, to hear like some of the ways, because previously we have cameras everywhere, right? For security purposes, there's people that have like footage that they just record, and it's like, oh, we had an incident. We go back, play the tapes, and we try to figure out what happened, yada, yada. This is so fascinating because we're now getting to the point where when we have machine learning and AI and computer vision that's really able to integrate with these camera systems, all of a sudden it's like we have smart data and we can make actionable steps in real time, right? Like someone misses a scan, you're able to be like, hey, you missed that. Can you, go and rescan that, especially with the self-checkout and Walmart, and everyone's doing that nowadays. But there's so many other applications that this is like so fascinating, like robots in proximity to humans at a car, manufacturing facility. Like, talk to us. So you're working on mobility right now. Talk to us a little bit about smart cities and some implications, because I think when a lot of people think of smart cities, it's like, it's hard to even know where to start with that. It's like, okay, the whole city's smart. It all functions on a grid. Everyone knows what's going on. But like, talk to us about what computer vision is enabling in a smart city and what people can think about and expect in this area.
Oh, you hit the nail on the head, man. It is one of those really nebulous things, like in sci-fi, like, oh, we're going to have a smart city. What does that actually mean? And that's part of the job, is articulating exactly what that means. In terms of like video, there's all these devices out there, especially in the traffic side of transportation, where you have cameras that are hung around intersections, and those cameras are in proximity with other devices like the traffic controller, the road. This is called an RSU, it's a roadside unit. It talks to smart cars and tells them there's people in the intersection in real time, and then that platform also gets displayed at the traffic management center. So they're looking at all of these feeds, and what we're doing is, and the difference between our platform and others is that it's open. So all of one thing that we see in the industry is that there's all of these siloed systems that don't really necessarily talk to each other, and that's what we're building is something that can work for parking, for instance. So smart parking, where you have a public-private partnership with one of our OEMs, and they will send a bill to the parking violation and then rev share that back to the city. So it's a really it's a moneymaker for the city, and it allows them to use existing cameras that they're probably using for other purposes and repurpose them for parking as well. So that's the big idea, is that we've got these wonderful sensors all over the place, and they're all just doing their one single purpose. And sensors being cameras, as well as other things like LiDAR, and so allowing those systems to be cross-discoverable across multiple different use cases is what we're after. And then secondarily, mapping all of that in a digital twin. So that's the next kind of ambition.
That is absolutely incredible, phenomenal. Okay, so this is amazing, and the technology is amazing. Implications are amazing. Okay, what I really think is cool here is it's like you already have the infrastructure of the cameras, so it's not like you have to roll this out everywhere. In a lot of places, right? It's like you can just kind of tie it into the camera systems that are already there. My one thing I would love to ask you about, and maybe concern-wise, and I don't know, I'd love to get your perspective on this, is I feel like we have, like, this isn't brand new. We're seeing this, for example, in places like China, where they have technology. You are walking down the street in China, you jaywalk, it gets a picture of you, then it blasts it onto like a bunch of billboards all around, and it like has your name, and it's like, this person has jaywalked, and it's like social credit score down 2%. I don't know, whatever, right? China's kind of doing their thing. Do you think that as we build smart cities and we build this, a lot of people, I'm sure, and I'm sure on both sides of the political spectrum in America, so I don't feel like it's too political, would be concerned about like a quote unquote surveillance state, or being like overly watched and governments kind of plugging into this? I don't know, what's your opinions, and where do you kind of predict that going in the future?
So we have a matrix that we operate under, and it's kind of hard to visualize, but in the columns are in enforcement and operational, and on the rows it's in real time or in post, and we are kind of in the upper left hand side of that quadrant where we're in real time, but we're just looking at operational data. We're not here to do any enforcement, which is the police state that you mentioned. And that is a legitimate concern, but that's not our focus. And I think there is one of the nice things that we do have in the West is these critical voices that can oppose the government, right? And although the government would love to have enforcement and operations in the same quadrant, we can oppose that as citizens, right? And have a voice in that. So even when I was working with the city and county of Denver, one of the very first things that they said was like, if there's any public perception that this is a speed camera or a license plate reading camera that's going to give them a ticket, it's probably going to come down, because and you have to be really careful about the PR, that whatever you put out there is going to get read, and it's going to get you're going to have a city council meeting about this very thing. So that's one of the wonderful things about the United States, is that we have this public voice that can and will voice itself once we once that the enforcement side of things starts coming about. But I've seen applications in jaywalking where it's not about catching people for jaywalking. It's more about like, how do we stop people from dying?
Right. Okay.
So yeah, it's really about how the city and the partnership with the technology provider messages that to the public. And if to be honest, if you get caught doing things that are in the enforcement side of things, it will come about, and it will come right to the surface, and your project will probably come tumbling down.
I love that. That's really cool. I think that's a fantastic perspective, and also I think that's a really good framing. I love how you guys have that quadrant, how you have it segmented, and then I love the concept of like jaywalking. Sure, is the concept of jaywalking to shame people or penalize them, or is the concept like we just would like to protect and save people's lives and focus on public safety? So I think there's a big difference there in how you view it and approach it. So it's going to be fascinating to see. I mean, regardless whether people like it or don't like it, oppose it, don't oppose it, like the technology is there and it's available. So I think it's going to be something we're going to have a lot of discussions about. Like you mentioned, America. I'm actually originally from Canada. I've lived in America for the last few years. I love it. It's kind of fascinating, the differences from, I don't know, just there's differences for sure. And I think you're 100% right. There's this public voice aspect where if people have an issue, I live in Arizona now, and I remember there was a time when the whole freeway, they put cameras on there where if you went too fast, you're getting flashed on the license plates, and those things didn't last very long because not everyone loves being enforced by camera on every single turn off on the freeway. So I think we'll have similar things, and the things that will stick, like you mentioned, are the things that focus on public safety, actually helping people, protecting people, and the maybe the fees and penalties for speeding or jaywalking are the ones that will probably not stick around for long. So Darren, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This has been absolutely fascinating to hear your perspective, what you're working on. This is such an interesting area. As we wrap this up, I would love to ask, if people are interested in learning more about what you guys are working on or getting in contact with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
I'm on LinkedIn, so I live there. If you want to go to our website, it's networkoptix.com, and that's probably the most memorable way to get a hold. But yeah, thank you so much, Jaden, for the opportunity, and again, I'm just so impressed with your work. Thanks again.
Hey, really appreciate it. To the listener, thank you so much for tuning into the AI Chat podcast. I'll drop links in the show notes to the URL Darren mentioned, and you can go check it out there if you're interested in using their technology for anything. And make sure to rate us wherever you get your podcasts. Have a fantastic rest of your day.